With Jimmy, you're among the league leaders in screens, and now you're among the league leaders in air yards. Has it just been a function of the different personnel or how defenses are defending your scheme?
I think it's both. I mean, you always, first thing you look at is how to attack personnel. I mean, how to attack a defensive scheme and what they're doing and stuff like that. And whatever you're good at, defenses usually adjust and opens up other areas. But then also you got to do what you think players can do too. I do think we have good screen players and stuff. I don't think they're there as much as they used to. When you have huge threats of guys on screens, there's a much bigger emphasis on guys to stop them, which could open up some other stuff, but it doesn't make it easier to run the more you have success with them.
With Dre Greenlaw still probably a couple of weeks away, do you need to get D. Winters on the field more than as you get that fourth down stop, but get him out there to rotate in with Campbell or something?
I mean, we did sometimes early in the year, but Devondre's been playing his best football here the last few weeks. Starting versus Dallas, thought he had his best game versus Tampa. D, I think, has been playing his best here the last 2 weeks too. You don't get as much reps in base, but he's been doing a good job. He's had his 2 best games on special teams, so I got no problem with D, but we haven't talked about rotating him yet or anything like that.
Take 2 more, guys.
Didn't slide, I don't think, on any shots as a result. You talk to him about that, or what are his kind of marching orders when it comes to scrambling?
Same as how we coach everyone. You don't want him to get hit, and we always talk about that. And I think he's done a pretty good job this year of avoiding them. He hasn't been too reckless. There was one in particular I thought he could have got down on a little bit earlier. But yeah, no, we don't want him taking those hits. And sometimes when it's 4th down and you're right at the line, that's a very different situation. But no, it's we always want him to slide and doing things like that.
Kyle, last year it seemed like everything went right for Brock. Going through all the statistics throughout the season. This year it's kind of been up and down. What do you think has been going right for him and versus wrong?
I mean, I think it's such a fine line with we're a 5-5 team, which isn't where we want to be. But you asked a question about Brock, but I think if we were 8-2 with the top offense in the league and stuff, I think we'd be feeling a lot better. And so I try to keep perspective of that, especially with our guys. And to me, that's come all the way down to how we finish games. And we've had 4 games here that have come down to the last 2 possessions, and we've only won 1 of those. And that's the difference between 8-2 and 5-5, with the one we won being Tampa. In contrast, you look at a team like Green Bay, they've had 7 games come down to the last possession, and they've won 6 of them, with the only one they lost being the opening game versus Philly. And that's why they have such a good record. So I think Brock's doing a lot of good things, but we're all going to be judged on winning games. And that's why our team's got to find a better way to win it there in the 4th so we can get a record right.
Appropriate progress for this being his 3rd season?
Yeah, man. It's hard to make a lot of progress after the way he played last year. And it was hard to make a lot of progress after the way he played his 7 games in his first year. So I think Brock's playing at the exact same level. I think there's different circumstances around him. Our team hasn't been quite as good through this, but it's been close to getting there. And close doesn't matter. That's why we're 5-5. But a couple plays here and there, and I think we're looking at it totally differently, and that's why we've put ourselves in the hole, and that's why we've made it a lot harder for ourselves here at this back half. But I still think it's going to come down to the same stuff. I bet these next 7 games come down to the 4th quarter, and we either get it done or we don't, and we got to find a way to get it done.
I know you mentioned that Nick Bosa was out of practice today. He'll be reevaluated throughout the week. But from what you know today, how are you feeling about, is he good? Could he be good for Sunday, or is it leaning in the other direction?
Oh, he definitely could be good for Sunday, and he definitely could not be good for Sunday. So that's why I don't think about it yet. And it's similar to the Tampa week when you got guys who are hurting. I don't ask them if they're going to play. I don't ask them after the game on Sunday. I don't ask them Monday when they're too hurt to practice on Wednesday. And, when it's a guy who hasn't done it before and they're a part of the game plan, and, sometimes I'll tell guys, you got to start to get out there. We're going to rule you out. But when it comes to a guy like Bosa, when it comes to a guy like Trent, their position, the veterans they are, how they play, those guys have all the way to kickoff for me. So I just look at it just like Tampa, and towards the end of the week I'll have a better feel, and that's when he'll have a better feel, and we'll discuss. Injuries for practice today. Jake Cowing in the protocol will be limited. Tatum Bethune, knee won't practice. Kevin Givens, groin won't practice. Trent Williams, ankle won't practice. Christian McCaffrey, Achilles/rest won't practice. Nick Bosa, hip oblique won't practice. Mooney, personal, he'll be limited. Purdy, shoulder will be limited. Kittle, hamstring limited. Feliciano, knee limited. Go ahead.
It's early in the week, but what is your level of concern for Brock's availability on Sunday?
Not much right now. See how this week goes, but it's limited today, so I think that's good news.
I know you guys came in on Monday, you said you guys were kind of pissed after the loss. Have you guys been able, talking to the team, to kind of turn the page and your focus on Green Bay, knowing how big of a win it is?
Sorry, yeah, what was the question?
The question was, if you guys have been able, you talking to the team, does it seem like everybody has kind of turned the page on the Seahawks game and is focused on the Packers?
Oh, yeah,
game?
yeah, totally. I mean, we do that good or bad. That's why we always meet on Monday. Every once in a while, I give guys Monday off, travel or sometimes victory Mondays, but usually that's very rarely. So we come in, we do a lot of work on Mondays for the day before, and by the time they leave the building, we're moved on.
Deaver's numbers as a runner are way down. He's averaging like 2.9 yards a carry. He was previous 4 seasons over 6 yards a carry. Anything you put your finger on as to why he hasn't been as effective in that one?
Yeah, he hasn't had a big one. Hasn't had a bunch of great looks. There's 2 looks, I think, this year that he did have a pretty good look and just missed it, where he could have had a big one. And when you don't get that big one, and you've had a few bad with looks, then that average isn't going to be good.
You guys have really good depth in the backfield. Is it possible we may see Correndo and CMC together, or Mason and CMC together in the weeks ahead?
You mean 2 running backs on the field?
Yeah, or maybe one of those guys flexed out as a receiver.
Yeah, 2 running backs on the field. Could. Can't give you our game plan, though. But, yeah, it's always a possibility.
What is yours and Bobby's philosophy on running back by committee? It just seems like over his career, at least, it's been one guy gets the lion's share, and that's how it is.
It wasn't like that for our first 4 years here. We had 3 guys usually. We had Tevin, we had Raheem, we got Breida. So I think we've always done it that way. It just depends on the backs. Since Christian's been here, I think it's the only time we've had one guy. And I think that's for obvious reasons. But when he's tired, we spell him, especially with the good backups we have.
You want to get Mason? I think Mason had 2 snaps on Sunday. Would you prefer to have him worked in more thoroughly?
Yeah, I like all those guys playing. But it depends on the situation, depends how many times you're getting the ball, depends on the drives. But it depends if we're going to put 2 backs out there. When you do 2 backs, and you got to take either a big off or another receiver. But I'm not always thinking of how to get Christian off.
How would Josh Jacobs change the Packers from the team you saw in the playoffs?
Aaron Jones was so good, too. So, I don't want to say a ton because, having an elite back's an elite back, and I felt that way about Aaron Jones. But Josh Jacobs is as good as it gets. I think the last time we faced him was in Vegas. I thought he was the best running back we faced that year. Christian will correct me on that since we faced him at Carolina earlier that year. Yeah. But no, he's a stud. He runs so hard. He's quick enough to make people miss, but he doesn't mess around when he makes people miss. He creates arm tackles, runs through arm tackles, and I think he's consistently been one of the top in the league here over the last few years.
When something doesn't work, then you say, well, why didn't you do that? But when Bosa left, I think Gino had 17 dropbacks and there was just 1 blitz called. And there was tons of pressure on him. Obviously, he performed pretty well. Looking back, should there have been maybe more pressure to try to be dialed up?
Yeah, looking back at it, obviously, when they go down to score, you'd like to. Most of it was 2-minute no huddle calls. I know we got to one when they did huddle up. We got to simulated pressure, I believe, once too. But I think it was pretty obvious how we tired out on that drive, and especially with him being able to scramble like that was the biggest thing, creating too much space in the pocket. When you do blitz, they get rid of it. That's why they got that 8-yard gain on first down. But at least giving them not access to get out of there would have helped.
Them being kind of that, at least that last drive, it's typical blitz is what you're saying.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of blitzes in no huddle. People usually have 1, sometimes 2, but when people are going fast at the line, it's a little different communicating to the 11 guys how to get a blitz and things like that. But it doesn't mean you can't do it. We do it, but it's no one does it as much.
On Charvarius being able to play Sunday, and how helpful would that be with the Packers having so many multiple receivers?
Having a good player like Mooney out there always helps. But this is going to be his first practice here in a while, so I really don't have any expectations of it. I'm going to take it slow, see how he is out there today, and watch him throughout the week and communicate with him throughout the week and make a decision as we get closer to game time.
With all the injuries, what kind of, I don't know, challenges does it present you when preparing for the game if you don't know who's going to go or who's not going to be able to go?
It's always challenges. I mean, that's stuff that you get used to as a coach. I mean, you got to change game plans when you know you're missing people, and when you're not sure, you got to have contingencies. And when you lose guys in warm-ups or in the first quarter, you got to be ready to adjust too. So it's a huge part of the game. When you have a lot, I think people talk about it more, but there's and that's just every week, week in and week out, and throughout games for everybody.
What did the defense change with halfway compared to what you saw last year?
It's been their biggest change, just in terms of they've always been 3-4 base and things like that. Now they're a 4-down base. Their front's a lot different, just more jet front, similar to ours. Some of their coverages too, a little similar to ours. By no means is it the same. Half does his own deal, but it's definitely different than what's been in the past.